Hey, it's Larry O'Connor here. O'Connor Tonight. The show tonight, by the way, at 9 p.m. is going to be fantastic. You're going to love it. And we'll see you live at 9 p.m. on Salem News Channel. But I just wanted to take a quick minute here in the home studio to give you an example, a perfect example of media bias. We talk about media bias all the time, right? Oh, the liberal media bias, and everything coming out of the mainstream media has a liberal bias to it. I mean, we've shown you examples in the past, but sometimes you just see something that's so perfectly obvious, but it's just built into the DNA of how they present the news that they don't even see it, and most of the times it just washes over us. We shouldn't even make note of it. And I wanted to show you this clip. It's from earlier today. It's on Good Morning America. And I mean, right at the beginning, right at the outset, you've got the anchor is George Stephanopoulos. He's a longtime Democrat operative. People don't know that you Gen Zers don't even know this, but this guy used to work for Bill Clinton in the White House. He helped Bill Clinton get elected. He worked for Bill and Hillary. Then he left the White House and went right to ABC News, revolving door, right? And by the way, when they brought him into ABC News promised that we know this guy's a political operative, but he's only going to do political analysis and he'll never be in a position of being, sort of the news guy. Well, look at him now. He anchors Good Morning America every single day, and he does this week the Sunday show that they have on ABC News. No one watches it anymore, but of course he's they tried to use him for political debates. He moderated a Republican debate back in 2012 between the Republican nominees for president. And he was supposed to be I'm just a newsman. I'm just a journalist. He's George Stephanopoulos, for God's sake. By the way, have you noticed this whole posture thing? He's constantly on screen like. Is this the deal? Is this what I got to do to get a $8 million a year contract? Let my hair go gray and just constantly not show good posture on screen. Oh, let me ask you a question here. I seem to be twisted like a pretzel. Why does he always do that? He's constantly turned away from the camera. I don't know about you. I feel like when I'm talking to you, I should talk to you like this. All right, so here we go. They're doing an analysis, and he talks to Rick Klein, their political editor, about how many election deniers are now running for office and winning. By the way, real fast, because this is analysis of Biden's speech yesterday. All they can do is talk about 2020 and people who had some, questions about the way the most extraordinary, unprecedented election in American history took place. You can't look at me and tell me that everything that happened in 2020 was completely new and unprecedented, because it was. We were in a pandemic, for God's sake. They literally ignored the laws of many states. Don't fact check me, YouTube. It's exactly what happened. It was under the guise of their emergency powers. There were laws, and you had governors say, yeah, we're not doing this anymore, and I can go ahead and change the way the election is going to be run because of the health emergency. That's a fact. And you know it. And so if anyone dares to say, hey, we have election integrity protocols in place, and we've never really done this sort of thing before under the guise of a pandemic, and maybe there needs to be some more firewalls put in place so people can't cheat. Maybe this was done in such an unprecedented way where you've got the Secretary of State of Pennsylvania overriding the state legislature in terms of how they collect and count mail-in ballots, that maybe this isn't the right way to go. Maybe we should actually follow the laws of these states. And suddenly you're called what? An election denier. An election denier because you're pointing out the fact that the 2020 election was unprecedented and maybe hasn't actually been proven to be as accurate as everyone tells us it has been. All right, so here's George Stephanopoulos talking about this. What?
Rick, you're keeping an eye on the critical state offices that will determine whether future elections will be fair and their results respected.
Yeah, George, this is exactly what President Biden is talking about.
Yeah, so by the way, did you notice that? So depending on who wins this Tuesday, that will affect whether future elections are fair. Did you twist your brain into a pretzel and understand exactly the case they're trying to make here? If people go out and vote and use the democratic process next Tuesday and they elect the people that we don't approve of, that's the end of democracy. Using democracy to elect the people we don't like ends democracy. Oh, but there's nothing undermining about our elections by saying things like that. All right.
We've analyzed public statements along with our partners at 538, and you could see candidates that deny the legitimacy of the last election. They're on the ballot everywhere. Almost every state has people like that running for Congress or statewide office. These are the ones that I'm most keyed in on, though, because these are battleground states that have people who deny the legitimacy of the election. Places like Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Joe Biden flipped 4 states from Donald Trump last time around. Four of these states were flipped by Biden. There's one other one as well. So these are going to be some of the closest states in the nation. And now you're going to have people potentially running the elections who say that the last election wasn't legitimately decided. We have never seen that before.
We have not seen that before, Rick.
We have not seen that before. We just saw that in 2020. All right, let's talk about these states that supposedly will now have people in charge running the election. He means governors and maybe attorneys general and secretaries of state. They're now going to be in charge of the elections, and they deny the legitimacy of the last election. In 2020, that's exactly what we saw. The governor of Pennsylvania called Donald Trump an illegitimate president, and he believed in the Russian collusion. But the governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, believed in the Russian collusion hoax, that Donald Trump was not the legitimate president, that Donald Trump was just placed in office by Vladimir Putin. He was a puppet of the Moscow government, and he was only there because of Russian collusion. She ran the election in 2020, and she didn't believe the prior election was legitimate, you see? But we've never seen that before, George Stephanopoulos says, agreeing with his Rick Klein political editor. We've never seen that. We just saw it. But you see, when you look at the news through their eyes, through their filter, through the lens of their own political pre-built bias, that's right. Oh, no. Questions about the 2016 election were totally legitimate. Yeah, here's George Stephanopoulos, who used to work for Hillary Clinton. He couldn't possibly bring himself to recognize that the Russian collusion hoax that was paid for and created by Hillary Clinton, the woman he owes his career to, was actually a complete fraud and was election denial in and of itself. And can we be real here for a minute? Since 2000, every losing party in this country after a presidential election has claimed that the president was illegitimate. Now, the Democrats took it on steroids. I mean, I didn't like that Barack Obama was the president, but there were some people who claimed he was illegitimate because of the place of his birth. I wasn't one of them, but there were some who declared that, right? George W. Bush, he was an illegitimate president because of the hanging chads. He was an illegitimate president in 2004 because of the Diebold voting machines in Ohio. Then you had 2 terms of Obama where people were denying his legitimacy. And then, of course, Trump. And now we've got the Biden, that every single time. Hey, I got a better idea. Instead of demonizing your fellow Americans when they lose an election and they feel things didn't go fair and square, how about we actually work together to focus on locking in integrity in our voting process so it doesn't take weeks to count ballots? You know, how about this? Everybody vote and dip their finger in a purple inkwell, because they can do it in Afghanistan. They can do it in Iraq, where we brought them democracy, and we can't figure it out here. Okay. But hold on. There's more. It gets even more biased. There's such a smoking gun here. Watch.
5 days until the final votes, more than 20 million people have already voted. And there are a lot of signs that this election is trending Republican.
You going to cry, George? You going to cry? There's a lot of signs. There's a lot of signs that show this is trending Republican. Look at his face. There's a lot of signs that show this is trending Republican. Oh, it gets better.
Yeah, and 538, our partners have run simulations, thousands of them, to try to determine where things are headed based on the polls. And we have seen things move in the Republican direction. You see, as of this morning, Republicans about an 85 and 100 chance by their calculations to take over the House, an overwhelming favorite. And in the Senate, it's a little bit better. But keep in mind, up until
in the Senate, it's a little bit better. See, now, if you used that phrase, so in the House, it's an 85 out of 100 chance that the Republicans win a big majority in the House. But in the Senate, it's a little bit better. Now, if I'm a Republican and it's not as overwhelming in the Senate, from my perspective, I would say, well, it's not as good in the Senate. It's not as good because I'm a Republican. See, I wear my politics on my sleeve. I don't try to pretend that I don't have a dog in this fight. You know, I have a rooting interest. I don't insult your intelligence by pretending that I don't. But these guys pretend, hey, we're just telling it like it is. We're just calling balls and strikes. We don't have a rooting interest. We're not like those people in talk radio or on Salem News Channel or those right-wing media outlets. No, we're ABC News. We play it down the middle. In the Senate, it's looking a little better. It's looking a little better only makes sense if you're a Democrat saying it and you're a Democrat hearing it. Could we do that one more time, please?
see, as of this morning, Republicans about an 85 and 100 chance by their calculations to take over the House, an overwhelming favorite. And in the Senate, it's a little bit better, but keep in mind.
Drop the mic. Drop the mic. I wash my hands of all of this. Is there any doubt now what we're talking about? Is that not the perfect example of media bias right there? I'll let him finish. I'm going to let you finish, Rick.
Mind, up until the last couple of days, Democrats were actually slightly favored to retain the 50-50 Senate. Now we see things begin to shift. We are in a true dead heat. And I'll tell you, George, I'm looking at just 3 states that could determine everything. Keep an eye on Nevada, which is probably the Republicans' best chance to pick up a Senate seat. Pennsylvania, almost certainly with Dr. Oz and John Fetterman, the best chance that Democrats have for a Republican seat. And then Georgia. It was so important last time. It could be just as important this time and just as close.
Rick Klein, thanks very much.
Yeah, Rick Klein, thanks very much. Thanks for ruining my day. Okay, here's the problem, though. He didn't tell you about Arizona, where it's now a dead heat. And actually, I would argue that Blake Masters, the Republican challenger, is actually taking a lead because the Libertarian candidate just stepped out a few days ago and threw his support to Blake Masters, the Republican. Now, that would be a Republican pickup. He didn't tell you about New Hampshire, where, again, dead heat, we're looking at a Republican pickup. He didn't tell you about Ron Johnson in Wisconsin, where Democrats up until just 2 months ago told us there was no chance he had to win re-election and hold that seat. And well, he is. And they didn't tell you about Ohio, where they were saying J.D. Vance doesn't have a chance. This is going to be another Democrat pickup. And no, it really isn't. Actually, that's going to be a Republican hold as well. Remember, part of the media bias is not just what they say and what they reveal like they did just there, but also what they don't say and what they don't talk about. Yeah, we're just looking at Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Nevada. Sure you are. Sure you are. All right, we'll see you tonight at 9 p.m. Could you subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're just catching us here so you can catch all of our live streams and our videos? We post at least 5 a day from the news show, including impromptu live streams like these. Subscribe now so you can make sure you get all of our videos, and then we'll see you at 9 p.m. live tonight for O'Connor Tonight. And in the meantime, we'll see you on the radio.